we are very happy to share our videos on YouTube. And the main reason would be, the subscribers has been increasing day by day. And the information that we can share as per the requirement, akhoi office the visitors yamna lai moigi questions yamna hangi khoi overseas ki education kamaina toba employment ki kamaina toba adara ngashi sina akhoi na ngashi ki episode sina Ph.D overseas the kamaina Ph.D tongni haiba adugi matangda adugi episode ti. Today, I'm very pleased to introduce you with one of our friend. His name is Jagbir, and he is presently doing his Ph.D. in geology from Canada. So let's hear from him first. Jagbir das waina lakbir ga khoi channel sida digi husigi people to the people of Manipur to share information na share to bini habi the makta lakbi se khoi amna nungai ado ahan badaina Jagbir hangning baze what are the requirements if you want to do PhD in Canada?
If you want to do a PhD in Canada, first requirement is you need to have a master's. You need to have a master's, especially if the master's is research focused. By that I mean, if you have done an Imphal, for instance, in India, that will be much more applicable to further pursuing a PhD. So having a master's degree is the first requirement. The second requirement is you need to show your competence in English. So by that I mean the IELTS exam or the TOEFL exam. GRE, on the other hand, is not a specific requirement. It depends on university to university. Some universities will require GRE scores, some don't. In fact, a lot of the Canadian universities don't require GRE. If I have to digress a little and if I have to mention the United States, they require GRE scores for almost all the institutions in the United States require GRE test scores. So that's the basic requirement for a PhD in Canada.
Okay. Yeah. You chose Canada to do PhD.
Right.
Why Canada?
Why Canada? Well, I started my bachelor's degree in Canada itself. If I have to answer your question, it's more specific to the program I chose as well, because geology is a tight-knit family, and usually even if it's a big university, the geology departments in big universities are also small, so you function like a tight-knit family. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of Canada. When I started my BSc in geology, we were pretty much about 30 students when we started in geology. I also got an experience to do my master's in Scotland, which was a different experience. It was still a positive experience. However, the reason why I chose to do a PhD is in Canada is because of the structure of the program. If you step into something like a PhD program, it teaches you more than just being a researcher. It teaches you a lot of soft skills like project management, being able to manage your time well, being able to multitask. Because I'm a PhD student, I've been researching for about 3 years. There has been less than 10% involvement of my supervisor. I have, from writing my own project proposal to coming up with a budget for my fieldwork, I had to do everything on my own. The only involvement my PhD supervisor has had is when he has to edit my written work, when we have to present at international conferences and he has to edit our conference material. That's when he steps in. And so I think a North American PhD will train you to be a much better scientist, a much more capable scientist when you step out of the university as a PhD.
PhD tauki hena khan gibse kadai gi hokibna
PhD togena khan ki base, well, I have to be completely honest. I started off with the thought that after my BSc I will get into the workforce, but it was because of the, you know, in those 4 years of doing my BSc degree, I had moments where I was doubting whether I want to pursue geology as a career, but it was one particular subject that got me really interested in geology, which is called sedimentary geology. And sedimentary geology is focused on the processes of how, you know, a river moves, how, you know, how an ocean works, and those things got me more excited. While doing my BSc degree, I also got the opportunity to represent my university, my Canadian university, in a flagship program that was run by the oil and gas industry, and so it was a fully funded program that allowed us to get an experience of how the oil and gas industry works on a day-to-day basis. And the sedimentary geology aspect of oil and gas industry got me even more excited. And that's when I decided to do a master's, and that's when I went to Scotland to pursue an MSc degree in petroleum geology. When I started my MSc degree, the oil prices were very high, things were looking very nice and happy. But towards the end of my master's, when I was finishing up my thesis, the oil prices went down to $45 a barrel, and it was a pretty nasty scenario in the industry where more than 30,000 people were getting fired. And so at that point it was a matter of, you know, are you really passionate in geology? And I guess through the process of my master's I got passionate enough to stick around and pursue a Ph.D. In geology. And so it's a matter of luck, and it's also a matter of hard work and networking and getting to writing hundreds of emails to potential PhD supervisors. And I got replied from 3 or 4 of them. Out of the 3 or 4 of them, you know, my current supervisor was the one who took me on, and I've never been happier.
Okay, so how many emails you wrote?
More than 100. It's more than hundreds of emails, more than hundreds of follow-ups to those emails. Because if your supervisor is a renowned scientist, on an average, on a weekly basis, they get about hundreds of potential PhD students or potential master's students writing to them asking for a position under him or her. But they're so busy that they don't bother replying. So it's exactly like applying for a job. You need to you need to go and find your supervisor first before you even apply for a PhD. You have to find your supervisor. Once your supervisor, and you have to convince your supervisor that you're capable to do a research under you, and that's when you apply for a PhD. So North American application of PhD is slightly different from elsewhere, I would say. You need to find your supervisor, and then the application starts. Yeah.
Okay, adone. Hoziki PhD matoge haibada kari darkar hoy combine approach tone. You just can't send an email and just wait and watch. You have to keep checking. You have to keep sending. There are different approaches that you can do. You can send email. You have to pick up your phone and dial. And what they do is these supervisors, they also check your intent. Now, Jagbir akoigi visitors mayam na hangba question ai khara so hanghoge. Let's say scholarship sip karigmo phangde heba tarabadi tuition fees se chahi mada kyamuka lai.
Depends on universities. Some of the universities like Canada, they will charge tuition fee exactly the same as domestic students. When they charge, so a domestic student on average pays about 3.5 lakhs per annum, 3.5 lakhs INR per annum as a PhD fee. But if you are an international student and if you don't have that kind of provision given by the university that you will be doing your PhD in, that on average is about 7 lakhs. And that's just PhD fees. On top of that, you have to find your own accommodation, and you have to, eating and lodging and so on.
Traveling.
But in general, 90% of the time, if you're a PhD student, you will be funded. So you will have a fellowship given by your professor. You don't get your fellowship in the lump sum. You get paid like a regular employee, which is bi-weekly. Every second week you get your paycheck, and that's how they pay you. You don't get your fellowship money in the lump sum. So you are an employee to university. You are researching under your professor. Your professor is your boss, and you have to treat him like a boss. If he gives you a deadline, you have to make sure you meet those deadlines, and that's why you're getting paid. So that's one source of income as a PhD. And another source of income is you get to teach, or you get to be a research assistant. So teaching assistantship will allow you, depends on the universities. If you have completed your master's and if you're getting into a PhD, your pay scale is higher. So the pay scale depends on universities to universities. Per hour you get paid from $35 to $45 depending on the universities.
Okay. And how many hours in a week?
In a week, I would give it per semester. So a semester is made up of 4 months, and so this is sort of like a side income on top of your fellowship. So the side income is about 200 to 300 hours in the whole 4 months. Yeah. So that's an added source of income, and so once you get this source of income, you don't even have to rely for money from home, because you can pay off your PhD tuition from what they're paying.
Okay, so
and
they're
independent. So yeah, the fellowship is pretty well funded fellowship. So these fellowships go on average from 20,000 Canadian to, it can pretty much go up to about 45,000 Canadian dollars. So the fellowship can range, and it also depends on subject to subject. If you are trying to pursue a PhD in arts, they are slightly less funded than science. So science will have more funding, and science will be able to pay you, while arts still will pay you, but it will be less funded, and it might be a little tight. You might have to borrow from your parents or take a little bit of loan. But on average, you should be able to live comfortably, have a bit of saving as well while you do your PhD.
Huziki scholarships, can you get up to 100%?
It is 100%. So when these are called fellowships, these are funding given by the universities and your professor. They have a set of fund which they allocate to their students for 4 years. And the range that I'm giving you, the 20,000 to about 45,000 range, is what they're going to give you, depending on how much funding your professor has.
And how long is PhD in Canada?
PhD on average lasts about 4 years. And on average, I would say, so that's on paper, you have to finish it by 4 years. But when you start writing your thesis, you go through an X number of edits. The amount of scrutiny that your professor takes you through when you're writing your paper, it might lead you to another extra 6 months or extra 12 months. So you might end up finishing it in 5 years. But that should be a deterrent to the viewers, because that will train you to be a better writer. That will train you to be a better researcher, because you can graduate with a PhD in 4 years, but you will have a product that is not up to par. Or do you want to graduate an extra year later when you have your research being published in international journals? That's something you will cherish for the rest of your life, right? And so 5 years on average, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
PhD loiraga job se karamba tobi hai.
PhD lawyer job say science study and also arts, I would say. You can target the industry, You can stay in academia, get into a postdoctoral fellowship, and from postdoctoral fellowship you can promote yourself to becoming. You need to apply for our professorial positions. The assistant professor, karaga assistant professor, degi associate and associate to full professor. And professors are really well paid.
How much?
On average, when you start your job as an assistant professor, you start making about 115,000 Canadian dollars, and when you become a full-time professor,
per annum.
Yeah, when you become a full-time professor, you go way above 200,000.
Okay.
Yeah. So
200,000.
professors are really well paid,
Okay.
and there's lots of perks when you become a professor. Your kids, if they want to study in the same university, your children, they don't have to pay a single tuition fee. They can study free of cost. But that's just one of the benefits of being a professor in a university. So professorial academic line or but industry line you can be a researcher in a research institute. You can work as a professional in, for instance, a geology professional. I will give my answers towards more geology specific. So geology, either you become an exploration geologist. I'm talking about the industry. Exploration geologist, you can target the mining industry. Exploration geologists, you can target the oil and gas industry, and you can also become a geologist in the environmental sector, where you become an environmental geologist. Option like that, and their rate of pay is pretty decent as well. They range from about a starting salary would be, with a PhD, you would start pretty close to 100K, and then you would go up to getting more than 200Ks. So, at the end of the day, what I want to say is, yes, rate of pay, they're all very encouraging to get into a profession. But you should never get into a profession, or you should never get into a PhD program because it's going to pay you more. You should get into a program because it interests you, because you are passionate about it.
Canada the labor Manipur is in Ningthoujam. How do you feel about Manipur?
How do I feel about Manipur?
Yeah. When you're away from home.
I think food is something that I miss. I also miss the more relaxed, laid-back attitude of Manipur. I miss it, because ever since I started my PhD, which was in 2016, I haven't had a single vacation. So the coming to overseas point today is part of my the first vacation I took in 3 years. So work is very hectic, and sometimes I work all the way through the weekend, and there's I haven't taken any time off. So the one thing that I really miss is the more so laid back attitude of Manipur, and the cuisine, the food. For you, you missed the laid back, kind of a scenario in Manipur, but there would be some individuals who love to work, like the way you do, without taking any offs, without taking any leaves, and that is one way to make yourself a successful person. Overseas points to shigumba questions kumba yamna leibise khoina sumaina thingna ba khoi guest sing je khoina request torga moi that direct information khoi viewers da khoina we try to share the direct information to our viewers. So what we do is we will keep doing this for a good cause, of course. Aduga kari habatare overseas point ta karigumba any education ki oigera natraga employment ki oigera karigumba haningma libatar so you can just pick up a call, just pick up a phone and screen among the labor numbers so that you can give a call. Expert any queries kumgani, or the best thing is you can come down to our office and we would be more than happy to answer all your questions.
again Jagbir na swaina lakpi bise akhoi yamna nungai aduga maruina people of Manipur moi ki hariba moi ki questions unanswered oiba mayam do hojikti I hope you know most of their questions are answered. Again, thank you and we wish you all the best in Manipur.
Thank you and happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you.